The Burning Phoenix by Phoenix Era Production. And today I want to go a little bit personal. I want to tell my story of how I became homeless at 17 with no contact with my family whatsoever in a brand new city that I was only weeks new to. And out of all city, it was New York City, the Big Apple. But yeah, I want to take you back from the beginning. If you don't want to hear a backstory and you want to go straight to it, I'm going to put a little time lapse right here so you can just skip to it. But I'm going to tell when I was 6. When I was 6, I was living in Puerto Rico. At that point, we have moved back and forth. Like, my family was they started me in traveling. Like, they were the one that gave me that passion, because when I was, I'd say, from what I remember, from like 3 to 6, they would fly a lot. Like, my mother would go to DR, my parents would go to DR because my dad was Dominican. And then they would come back and forth from the US here, especially this area, Connecticut, Providence, and whatever. Moved to Connecticut because my mother became very ill. And Puerto Rico is not the best, doesn't have the best medical care. It's not Cuba. Like, people say Cuba has the best one. We ended up moving to Connecticut. By 2007, my family had bought a house. But unfortunately, not too long after that, around in 2008, my mother passes away. And I'd say that's when the Titanic hit the iceberg. But it's a different type of Titanic. It was like if the Titanic hit the iceberg and the iceberg, like, for some reason made the captain hit his head and, like, he died. So the Titanic was, like, sinking with absolutely no captain. And that's what my family felt like. It was like a Titanic sinking with no captain, because she was the captain. Like, she was the Titanic and the captain. She was carrying all of us and at the same time guiding us. And no shame to my dad. He was just like the breadwinner. He used to go to work. He was like any dad. He used to go to work, try to make sure his family's fed, try to make sure, you know, like, we just bought a house. There was a house mortgage. There was 5 kids living with us. So it's not like I don't want to shit on my dad, but because I know he had a lot of responsibilities. But those responsibilities made my mother be the forefront of the family, and made, I can only speak to myself, she made, in my eyes, she was just your friend, your mother, and just the one person you could go to. So when she passes away, it was just like, what do we do now? Like, I didn't really know my dad to be the one I could go to or confide to, so it was just weird. And I don't think I ever got used to it. I don't think I am still used to it. And I should ought to tell you this. My brother was living with us not less than a year. Like, we was about to buy the house, and I was asked, my blood grandmother had asked my mother if she wanted to take care of my biological brother, the second oldest, because I have 3. I have oldest, which passed away, I have him, and I have a sister. I remember her asking me if I wanted it, and I was like, yeah, sure, he's my brother. Like, I was just excited. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have a brother, a biological brother. And I just remember it being a big deal, because, like, I never really felt, like, even though my family was a big family because my mother was a foster care mother, I never felt like I had, like, really siblings. Like, it was just, like, kind of classmates or housemates. It wasn't really, like, a sibling thing. Especially, like, my mother had 2 kids when she was younger. And the age gap was there. Like, I think the age gap is 18 to 20 years. And they made it clear that we're not brothers and sisters. And they would kind of put themselves in the same level as the parents. So I just don't know. It's just like the structure of the family it just made it really clear that we were not siblings. We were just like living in the household, trying to make it to 18. But yeah, I still love them. It was amazing. All of my brothers, they were part of my history. But yeah, after 2 to 3 weeks after my mom passes away, my brother was getting into arguments in school, and that was kind of one of the reasons why my grandmother had to ask my mother to take care of my brother, my biological brother, because he was a handful. He was getting in a lot of trouble. My biological father was not competent whatsoever to take care of my brother. And that kind of showed when he came. There was a lot of arguments. Me and him would fight a lot. He was kind of a bully towards me. And it was not a good move at all. And 2 to 3 weeks after my mom passed away, he was getting a lot of fights. Now, this one particular fight, I remember there was like a couple, like he was, I don't know, I just remember me thinking, why is there more than one people fighting him? Like for me, that was just like, wait, why? Like if it was one person, I'm like, whatever. But I just remember it being fair, so I got in it. And I don't know, I've always been prissy, like I don't fight. I use my words, and I know how to shut you the fuck up with my words. That's pretty much it. And if you want to fight, I'll just call the cops. Like, yo, I pay you taxes. Come take care of this dude for me. But I remember that one time I actually got in, and I was like, and I don't really remember the fight. I just remember like, I don't know who won or anything. I just remember us fighting. And then we went home. I think my sister had to pick us. I don't know. But we got in trouble, of course, and we got suspended. And I remember us being in the living room. It was all like she was scolding us. My sister, because after my mom passes away, she kind of became the mother of the house, because of course my dad had to work and all that stuff. So, and she was when my mother moved to Connecticut, she took over the foster care shebang they had going on in Puerto Rico. So she was kind of the house mother for some of the foster care kids in the house. There was twins there. They were teenagers. They were older than me, and she was, for them technically, like my sister, she was the mother that was taking care of them, because my mother had moved to Puerto Rico, and I had left them behind to be taken care of by my sister, because their cases were still ongoing with DCF, and long story short, I think it was just more convenient to keep them in, taking care of the family house in Puerto Rico, because of course we couldn't leave the house unattended. And my sister, like, she scolded us, and like any Puerto Rican parenting, I'm not saying it's okay, I'm just saying it's any Puerto Rican parenting back in 2006, before, the cancel culture and all these people came in the picture and try to be all kumbaya, let's just talk it out and shit, which is more effective than hitting people. But I'm just saying, it's a difference now from 2006. And she took a bell and she beat us. I got hit too. She took us. I got taken to the room. I got hit, and he got taken to the room too, and then he got hit. But there's two sides to what happened that day. So apparently, the one is that yes, my sister kind of overdid it, and he was marked pretty bad. And then the second thing that I heard was that he hit himself. They also thought that because he kept saying that he wanted to go back to his dad's house, my biological father's house. But of course, it was not a good idea, because my father is part of gangs, and like he was one of the biggest reasons why we were put into foster care to begin with. And he was in a wheelchair, and he was like completely incapable of taking care of any kid. So, but he was determined. He was like, oh, there was too many rules in my parents' house, and he knew that he could do anything he wanted in his dad's house. So he was he wanted to be sent to Puerto Rico. So that's why they think he did that. But long story short, he went to the school counselor after the suspension started, and he told on my sister, and there was a whole case going on that same day. They took me out of class. They brought me to the office, the guidance counselor office. There was already a DCF person there. Like, it was crazy. Like, I remember seeing them, and I saw my brother, And I was like, nope, that's not happening. I'm not doing it. And I walked out. I remember walking out. I was like, for some reason, someone, ever since I was a kid, I could come into a room and I don't give a fuck if my eyes are blinded. Like, if I have a iPhones in my eyes, baby, I know what's going on in that room. I know secrets. Like, I just know. And they didn't say nothing, and I knew, and I just walked away. And it was a big deal. Like, everybody was like, no. And I was like, no, I'm not going to. I don't want to talk to nobody yet. Like, fuck all of y'all. Like, I was just like, no, if he, like, because I already knew what he did. So I was like, if he was the one complaining, bitch, I didn't complain. You see me? I'm not no punk. Like, I was okay. I took my hits, and I just went on my way. Like, I was chilling in my class. Mind you, at that time, I was with my most favorite teacher ever. Like, her name was Miss Gillespie, and oh my god, like, to this day, she's like my number one teacher, that I've ever had. Like, she saw me through my mom's passing. She saw me through my whole brother situation, and like, even after I graduated 3rd grade and like went up to the other grades, like, it was just a bond that we had created. It was just inseparable. And I was just like, I'm in Miss Gillespie's class. Goodbye, everybody. Like, I don't want to talk to none of y'all. Like, but I was like, they had like, somehow, some way, they just told me that I had to. And then, like, they made me, like, they checked all of me. They made me take my pants off and whatever. No, not underwear off, everything. And there was like people. And they didn't see nothing on me. They only saw stuff on him. And that's when we got sent to foster care, and I was in foster care for a good 5 to 6 months, 2 to 3 weeks after my mom passed away. Like, they had just came back from Puerto Rico because my mother was transported from Connecticut to Puerto Rico to be buried in Puerto Rico, and literally, like, them touching the floor here back in Connecticut after the funeral, like, this whole thing happened. And my dad had to go to court when my grandmother had to come from Puerto Rico to Connecticut to fight to gain my custody, because if not, I would have been put in foster care. Both of us would have been stayed in foster care till we was 18. So my grandmother came, and the judges granted her custody. She, of course, she did the correct thing, and she sent me back to Connecticut, and she was like, if you want to live with your father and live the life you want to live, then I'm not going to stop you. So she sent him back to his father. Listen, we all have free wills, and she's a person that I respect because she understands the free will. Even if he was like, what? I think he was like 11, 12 at the time. My dad picked me up from Puerto Rico after they did the guardianship change and everything. It was all legal. Like, it's not like we were not permitted to go back. The real reason why I got sent to Puerto Rico was because in the custody battle between my real biological mother and foster care, whatever, they had given the custody to my foster care and to my grandmother. They were like, we can't give it to your biological mother, but we're gonna give it to your foster care and your biological mother, whatever. But my biological grandmother was completely okay with me living full time with my mother. Like, she loved the way she admired my mother because she was a great mother. So yeah, that was the reason, because of the joint custody, my dad didn't have any type of joint. Even though they were married, like, the custody only named my mother and my grandmother. So the court was like, I'm sorry, but the grandmother is the one with the custody, so technically the kid has to go with his grandmother. So we both got sent to my grandmother. Whatever, my dad came, picked us up, and that was it. I moved alone back to back to Connecticut. Soon after, my dad found a girlfriend. She lived in the Dominican Republic. This is actually, like, I feel like that relationship was what caused a friction in my family, because there was a war started between my dad and my mother's biological kids, because they kind of, I don't know, from what I'm hearing is that they felt he moved on too quick. Like, they mentioned something about 6, 7, 8 months after my mom passed away, he was already dating and everything like that. And not only that, before, I think what really killed it is that he started dating like a girl that was like, whoo, like 20 something years old, like, and he's over here being 40. So that was when really the war in my house, it became being from everybody being sad and depressed because my mom passed away to like a whole out war. We ended up going to Dominican Republic for a Christmas. It was me, my dad, and my dad's biological brother, which he was also living with us in Connecticut. We had went to Puerto Rico. I'm sorry, to the Dominican Republic, and the first day I got there, my dad has a beach house. Like my family dad has a beach house. They actually owned the street name is actually named after my dad's last name, because my dad's father owned pretty much like the whole, like that little whole part of the neighborhood, and he like gave it, or the government took it. I don't know, something like that. But long story short, there was a beach right there, right back of the house. So I went to the beach that same day because we was in Connecticut and it was cold because it was December, and I was like, yo, I'm in the Dominican Republic now. It's hot. Let me get in the shower. Let me get in the ocean. But I don't know if it was a switch of temperature. I got sick for being in the ocean after being in the cold or whatever. And I was sick for a good couple days. Like, I was pretty bad. And then not only that, after I recovered, I was running. Like, I was running with some family members of my dad's, like some kids. We was playing by the ocean, by the beach. And I ended up busting like my ass really bad. Like, I fell and I scraped like I still had the scar. I scraped the hell out of my feet. And we had to go to the clinic and everything, and yeah, like I never got to meet her. Like that whole trip, but I think that the whole trip was meant for me to meet her, but somehow, some way, I just never met her. And the funniest thing happened. They ended up getting married. Now, my dad literally married somebody, and somebody became my stepmother before I ever met them. Like, I didn't go to the wedding. I don't know why I didn't go to the wedding. Like, I don't know if there wasn't a lot of money, or it was because of the war. Like, I don't know if he saw me part of the war between, because the house really became split split. Like, it was my dad's team and my mother's biological kids team. And I don't know if he just saw me part of the other team, that I was just not brought to the wedding. So I never met her, and they were married for a good year and a half. Of course, he would go back and forth. I remember this one time he went on my birthday, like, because they married so close to my birthday. Like, it was like a week before my birthday, or I think it was the same week. Like, I don't know. It was crazy. And he went on our birthday, and he didn't even take me with her. He just went to it, and I feel like that's when I kind of took. That's when I kind of went into the other side. Like, I really did went to the other side. Like, not even before they got married. It was really after that. Like, for her, I was like, damn, I'm like, you just married this person. Like, and then I was only been dating for like, including marriage, I was only been dating for like, what, a year and some change? Like, damn, I'm your son, technically. So it kind of hurt. But she was still like I never really had a problem with her. She was very loving. She was a very beautiful soul. Like, I never saw any malice on her. I never felt anything from her, but evolved by what I saw, because like I did talk to her on the phones, and we did talk to her on the phones and whatever, and there was pictures and FaceTime and everything. Well, Facebook Live, or Ubu at the time. But yeah, in 2014 was my graduation. On my graduation, my 8th to 9th to freshman year of graduation, my dad goes to, she's pregnant. Okay, I should tell you this. She's pregnant. My dad goes to my graduation or whatever, and she was having complications because she had high blood pressure, and she was how can I say this? She was on the heavy set weight, like heavy, and she had high blood pressure problems and like stuff that had to do with all that good stuff. And her being pregnant just like made all her all her levels of health, whatever, just go even more crazy. And whew, on the day of my graduation, in June something, I think June whatever, in 2014, she passes the day that night. I remember it was just like I was just in my room. They were all coming down from the stairs, which is very rare, and I just heard my dad crying, and I went. No, my brother, my mother's biological son came to my room. He was like, "Yo, you have to go to your dad because he just lost his wife." And I was like, "What?" I didn't know. Like, I didn't really register till I got to the room and I saw him like literally just devastated. And it was bad because she was having a girl, and like the baby was already like, I think she was good months. Like, they already knew the sex and everything, but they both passed away, the baby and her. And that was a good 9, 10, 11, 12. I was like 4 or 5 years after. That was 4 or 5 years after my mom passed away, so it's not that long. And that's when me and my dad's relationship became bad. Like, I felt neglected, like, even before she passed away, because he was focusing a lot on that type of the family and going back and forth from Puerto Rico to the Dominican Republic and just leaving me behind. Because I only went to the Dominican Republic at one time, and that I got super sick and like that stuff happened or whatever. And yeah, it was bad. Like I felt neglected, and I did something really bad actually. Which is funny because it kind of relates to what I'm doing now. I felt neglected, and I was like, I want to do something with myself. I felt like because I've always been the type of person that I don't care. I never like needed anyone. Like, I've always had that type of resilience in me, and I was just like, if you're not gonna take care of me, I'm gonna take care of myself. And as a 14-year-old kid or whatever, I did something crazy. I took my dad's credit card, and I was like, I'm gonna start a YouTube channel, which is like a debut to now, whatever, but okay, whatever. And I bought myself a microphone, I bought myself a webcam, and I bought myself a tablet, which everything ended up being like 400 and something. And he didn't know that. And then, to be fair, this all happened before she passed away. Like, but I hid everything. Like, he didn't notice because I did it like I didn't do it all at the same. I'm a very intelligent kid. Like, I did it in very small fractions. Like, I wrote down what I needed, and I was like, okay, this day I'm gonna get this. The other day I'm gonna get that. And then I ended up also caring about my image, and I was like, I can't start a YouTube channel looking like this. So I ended up buying hair products and stuff, and I was like, I gotta get myself orejia and like looking all cute. So I spent a good $400 to $500 completely, and then he didn't find out. Well, the way he found out, it was just bad because he found out when he had went to Dominican Republic to bury his wife. So he's over there burying his wife, and then he finds out that his kid just like technically stole like $400 to $500 to start a YouTube channel, which at the time he didn't even know what. Like, I don't think he still knows what YouTube channel is. Like, so in his mind he was just like, he just spent $400 just to spend it. And like, yeah, and I had taken the money, but I've always had in my mind, I was like, I'm gonna pay him. Like, I know that my channel is gonna grow so big that I'm gonna be able to pay him back at the time. But like, of course, like, you can't tell your father, oh, like, I just took it, but I knew it was no. In his mind, he was just like, and I feel like that, like, between the split of the house between the teams of his father, of my father and my siblings, my mother's biological kids, that in his eyes put me all the way on the other side of the team. And I feel like that like completely broke us, like as a parent figure and son figure. That and he felt that I never tried to give his wife a chance, and he hold that against me, and he hold that against the other siblings. And then for them, I totally understood, but for me, it's just like I was just stuck in the middle. Like it was just like I had a more connection with my other siblings because they were closer to my age, and even though there was like 16, 17 year difference, but they were still like kind of my brothers. And not only that, like my brother would work a lot, so like my dad would work a lot from like 8 to like 9 p.m. At night, and then from 9 p.m. to like 11 he would go to the gym like almost every day. From 9 to 11, that was his therapy. Like he would just go to the gym. So like from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. like I would go to school, I would come home, there was nobody home because everybody was upstairs, and of course I would just always be upstairs because I didn't want to be alone downstairs. But that's just like, it just became like bad after that. Like we would just fight. He would come home to try to like find something to argue about. Like I just really do think that he became super depressed. He both his wives died, and his unborn kid died with her too. It was like, I totally understand it. Like now that I'm an adult, like I can totally understand why psychologically and mentally it would just go that dark for him, especially with me and him feeling that the house is like against him and his decisions and stuff after his first wife passed away, which they were married for 20 years, my mother and him, which is kind of why my other siblings felt offended, because like, yo, it was 20 years and you start dating somebody at 7 months after. But just like at the end of the day, it's just like, you know, the man, I feel like he felt like after my mom passed away, like he needed that other mother. Like he needed the pillar for the house, for everyone involved, because there was a lot of kids in there. There was teenagers. Like I was the most youngest. I've always been the youngest in the house. But I just felt like he wanted to have that other person because he felt like he couldn't do it by himself. I just feel that that's why he jumped so quick. I don't know. He ended up dating this thing. And after that, and it was not a good thing. Like when I tell you this lady is mentally ill, like this lady is mentally ill. Like she was so bad that she accused me of having a crush on my father. He was like, you want to know why you have problems with me and like why you don't like me, whatever, is because you have a crush on your father and you dream and fantasize about your father. Like that was the most, like, for you to tell, at the time I was like, what, 16, 15? For you to tell a 15-year-old like that, I was, what? I'm the type of I'm a fiery person. Like, yeah, I'm a Pisces, but most of my natal chart is fire. Like, I will curse you the fuck out with you. Like, we could curse each other out. We could do anything. Like, I would not stand down for nobody. Not even my father. Like, me and my dad could argue all day, and that ain't shame for her. And he was bad. And I ended up calling DCF, and I was, because I got so mad at him, and I was like, yo, I'm your son. You're not taking care of me. Every day you're coming here to argue with me. Like, it was just a constant argument, and I was like, fuck you, I'm calling DCF. I want to get the fuck out of here. You're not taking care of me. I could go somewhere else where I'm getting taken care of. And I was just like, I'm out of here. And I called DCF on him, and they came and everything, and they did a whole case or whatever, and they ended up putting us in family counseling. But somehow, some way, she convinced him that we didn't need that no more. Even though I felt like that was like a good point, because we were making so much progress. This counselor was opening his eyes, like, to this lady. Somehow, some way, she just convinced him to not take me no more. Long story short, it just became irreparable, and I ended up moving to Waterbury. Now, I moved to Waterbury, but their relationship was like worse. Like, she would fight with everyone. She would try to get him to go against everybody that was in the house. Like, she would talk shit about my dad's biological son, my dad's sister. Like, it was just like them against the whole world in her eyes. And there was like, she ended up even getting my dad arrested, like, because of a altercation that happened. And like, I don't know. Now my dad, even though my dad was like a complete asshole, like for me, but he's not the type of asshole to get arrested for, you know. Like he wouldn't hit a woman. He was very gentleman. But like he got him to the point where like I think he shoved her and everything because she was in his face, or I don't know. They called she called the authorities, and the authorities ended up arresting both of them for mutual assault. I don't, some bullshit like that. They ended up sending them both to anger management or something like that in Connecticut. So yeah, that's what that happened, and then they ended up dating on and off. But thankfully, like, he's no longer with her. He's happily remarried. I was at their wedding and everything, and I videotaped their wedding. And it was like wow. It was like wow. He got married, and I was at the wedding, and that was crazy. Yeah, I ended up moving to Waterbury, Connecticut, with my mother's biological siblings, because at that point they had bought a house in Waterbury. Beautiful house, like beautiful house. They still have the house. And for me, that was like a motivator, because in Connecticut, like my grade in Bridgeport, which is where I lived, it was like my grades was horrible. Like I was just too focused on what was happening in the house, like, and I would bring that energy to school, and I don't know, it was just like all I knew was just conflict. So I was just like make conflict in school, and just I don't know, it was just my grades was not good. But when I moved to Waterbury, it's like I completely changed. Like I closed down with everyone, like in school. Like I didn't want to talk to kind of nobody at first, and I just focused on my school. And it was, and it's also because my sister like kind of threatened me. She was like, "Oh, if you don't do well here, you don't change your life, you're gonna go straight to your dad's house and that lady." Because at the time we was together. Like for me, it was like I would do everything in the power to do whatever so that I don't have to go back to that lady. And yeah, but the thing is that I was throughout this whole thing, I was going to a private music school called Forney Center for the Arts, which is secondary. I don't know what they call it. It's like a vocational school or something like that. I would have to go to my public school first from 9 to 12, and then from 12 to 5, I would have to get in a bus and then travel to a town over called Trumbull, Connecticut, and I would have to go to that school. Now, I fell in love with that school. It was a beautiful school. Like, we had people there working that used to work for Broadway, and it was just a big opportunity for me. And at the time, I wanted to be a singer, and I just knew I wanted to be somewhere in the public figure. So I was just like, I don't want this. And not only that, I had auditioned to get in there. Like I auditioned, and it was just a big accomplishment for me. And I was just like, I don't want to move to Waterbury and have to leave this accomplishment that I made for myself, because nobody in my family really supported me. Like nobody went to my shows. Like we did shows there. Nobody went. Like my dad went to one, my dad went to one. But whatever. My sister used to work in Bridgeport while she lived in Waterbury. And that was where my public school was at. So we never changed my address. We lied to the education board or whatever. And I ended up finishing my 10th. Yeah, I ended up finishing my sophomore year in Bridgeport, even though I was living 30 to 40 minutes away. And I would go, but it would work out perfectly because my sister would have to go in at the same time as I would have to go into my public school. But by the second year, I don't know. I think it was a decision that I made also, or it was just like the traveling back and forth and just, I don't know. I just decided that I was like, whatever. I'm just gonna move completely to Waterbury. Like I'm just gonna go to school here. And I think it's also because my sisters were complaining too. They was like, oh, blah, it's so far, whatever. So I ended up just like leaving the music school, and for my 11th year, I went to a Waterbury school. And I did good. I did some honor classes, and I joined the school play, which at the time I think they were doing Rent. Yes, they was doing Rent, and I actually played the black dude in the movie that he's gay. He met this gay dude in the street, and he had HIV, and then he ended up dying, and yeah, I played there, and I had a big solo, and like I was like one of the leads or whatever, and we would always practice, and then that's how I met like some of my friends, and I don't know, it was like really one of the first times that like I felt like I really had like really good friends and close friends, like we would go. It was just like my highlights. Like it was just after school and just going to practice, and it was whatever. I started having like a couple arguments with my brother. He's a very stubborn person, and I'm also very stubborn. And in my head, I was just like, "You're not my dad. Like, you're my brother. Like, I don't have to talk to you like you're my dad." But in his head, like I said in the beginning of the video, like they had put themselves in a level of parenting because they were like, oh, we're the oldest. We're the only one here that's like biological to my mother. Like, you guys are just here from the government. Like, in their head, like they had this complete wall dividing them from us. And we had to respect them like they were like, you know, the gods of the house. And for me, like that didn't go past me. Like, I've always been the type of person I don't look up on nobody, and I don't look down on nobody. And we were arguing some here and there. He was also going through some shit. I became, like, my friends that were in the school, they lived, like, not that far away from my house. Like, they live, I'd say, a 3-minute walk from my house to my friend's house. And I would, for that week or whatever, this was the last week I was living in Waterbury, at night, I would go out and I would go out and I would go to one of my friend's house, Roma's house, to kind of just like hang out and just and just be cool. But my family, it was just like they're very like religious and very like I don't know. I don't know what happened. Some girl from my family's church went, and some vieja, oh my god, like went to my sister, and she was like, oh, I saw your kid like whatever going here, blah blah blah, and I think they thought I was doing drugs or whatever, and I was like, what? Like, to be honest, like in Waterbury, I only did weed once, and it was like a good 2 weeks before my last week, and yeah, it was just like an experiment. I went to one of my friend's house and I tried it, but I never tried it again. It was just that one time. I was just experimenting. I remember getting a text from my sister, and she was just like, pick up everything from your house. You're leaving today to your dad's house. And I was so confused. I was like, wait, what? Where the fuck did this come from? Because it was like like I was doing great in school. Like at that point it was already summer. It was summer. I had just finished school. Like I ended the school with a fucking being in the National Honor Society. They had given me my schedule, my next year's schedule. I had AP classes. I was a National Honor Society, and it was just, it just completely took me out of whatever. It was crazy, and she did it. Like she got home from work, from coming from Bridgeport, and she asked me, "Oh, I was just like, I know, like I think I didn't," and then she was like, "No, you have to. Like we were going now." And she never asked me if it was true, whatever the bitches from church told her or whatever. And they just completely like, it was just like, I don't care. We're going to send you back to your dad's house. Like, and completely didn't care about my progress, like my education, nothing. And that same day, they took me to Bridgeport, Connecticut, and they left me in my dad's porch. My dad was like, you can't come upstairs. You can't come in. And he was trying to put me in a Bridgeport shelter. He was just like, oh, you're already 17, blah, blah, blah. Because I think in his mind, like, he thought that I was being sent. Because they never really told him either, like, what the fuck happened. They were just like, here you go, here's your son back. So in his mind, he thought that I was just doing anything in Waterbury. Which I really wasn't. Like, we kind of had an argument right there in the porch. Like, he never let me go upstairs. He was just like, you can't come in. His girlfriend was still there. His girlfriend was screaming from upstairs, oh, he can't come in here, blah blah blah, like he can't do that, blah blah blah, and fucking bitch. I had to, I think, yeah, I don't know if they mentioned it or if I just had the idea, and I was like, I'm just gonna call my aunt, my biological aunt. Now my biological aunt is my biological mother's sister, and she lived in Bronx, New York. Now she was in my life here and there, like she visited me like once or twice when I was living with my dad and like when my mom was still alive, but it wasn't like we had a relationship. But I just know I was like, okay, I have a biological family member that lived not so long ago. If my adopted family is kicking me out and trying to send me to a shelter, why not just go to the biological family's house? Turns out that wasn't such a good idea. I ended up going. My dad drove me all the way over there, and he just left me there. And then, yeah, like, it just like, I didn't know how I felt. Like, I didn't really process that emotion good. Like, I was waiting for the school year to start. The school year was looking great for me. Like, I was so excited for college because I was like, with this AP and in social honor society, my past years, my freshman and sophomore year is gonna be completely looked past, and I'm just gonna go to college. And at the time, I wanted to be an orchestra conductor. Like I wanted to direct like orchestras in like in colleges or symphonies and all that good shit. And yeah, I moved to the Bronx, and my cousin, she ended up helping me. She used to work for this company called Just Salad, which is like a salad bar. They hold open houses every Wednesday, and I went on a Wednesday, and I met my first manager, and he hired me. Like, it was my first like real job, and he just hired me, and that was on a Wednesday. And that Friday, I had an orientation. I'm gonna step it back a little bit. My aunt was like, cause I had moved in like on the 6th, on July 6th I moved in, and by July 16th I already had a job and everything. Like I was hired. I had been to the interview and I was hired, but she was scared because she was like, you can't work, blah, 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 because of my Section A, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, how am I going to survive? Like, I don't expect to live here, like, my whole life. Like, what the fuck? And she was like, you have to, like, even after I got the job, she was like, you can't work here, blah, blah. You have to go back to your dad's house. You have to go back to your dad's house. And I was like, that's not a fucking option. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And she was like, you have to go back to your house. You're not going to fuck up what I've... And then she became like real ghetto and like, you're not gonna, like, she gave me her true colors. Like because I never really met this lady. I just knew she was just my blood aunt. And she showed me her real colors. Like, she showed me how mentally ill she was. And she was like, and how trauma-based life she was living. Like, she just like was so scared of her apartment being taken away because she had came from being homeless and like blah, blah, blah. And like, being from the street and like drugs, and like she had apparently changed her life, and she was like, oh, you have to get out of here. And I was like, you have to go to your dad's house. So I was like, fuck it, you know, I know I can't go back to my dad's house because I'm not gonna live with that old hag he was being girlfriends with, and I'm just not gonna be happy over there. And what's the point of me going back to Bridgeport if I can't even go back to the school that I felt like I couldn't go back to school that I love, which was the music school. And not only that, like, I was gonna lose like all my AP classes and all that good stuff because I didn't know if like my Bridgeport schools was gonna put me in those type of honor classes the same way as the Waterbridge schools were. And I was fuck it, and I just decided to go. Like, I was just like, I'm just gonna leave, and I didn't know where I was gonna go. Like, I was just like, I'm gonna leave, and I lied to her, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to my dad's house, and she gave me like enough money for the ticket for the Metro North railroad ticket to go back to Connecticut, and I used that money to go to Midtown Manhattan, and yeah, I didn't know the plan. I just didn't know. I didn't even want to go to Connecticut. It's just not. It was just not gonna happen. Like, yeah, I didn't know. It was just something took over me, and something was like, no, you're not going over there. That's not your purpose. That's not. You're already here. Like, I don't know. And then for some reason, when I was a kid, I was like, I'm gonna move to New York. I'm gonna move to New York, and I always had New York in my mind, and like New York was always like a big thing for me. And like I would even tell my siblings, I was like, oh, when I become older, I'm moving to New York. I'm moving to New York, and I was there. Life presented itself to me and put me there. That first night, I walked. I just walked. I got off the train. Once I got to, I think it was Central Park. I got off at Central Park, and I was just walking. I felt numb. Like I didn't know how to process it. I just knew that I just didn't have a house. I didn't have a house. I didn't have nobody to call. Like at the time, I had had zero conversation with my dad because he had just tried to put me in a shelter. I had zero conversation with my mother's siblings because my mother's kids, because they just kicked me out of the house for what I believe was absolutely no reason, and just complete gossip from a bitch. Yeah, I just felt completely like alone, but I was just like, I got me, you know? It's just like, I felt alone, but it was just like, I just felt enough. I was like, I don't need none of them. Like, I could do it myself. Like, I don't have to go back to my dad's house. I walked. And I walked till like it became night. And I was like, it's cold. I don't know, I have to do something. And then I tried to see if there were shelters that would take in anyone just walking or whatever. And I called this hotline, and this hotline was transferring me to other places. And then they ended up finding this place that was a church, ironically. And it was a basement shelter of a church. And when I got there, it was scary. Like, scary. It looked like a dungeon. Like a very disgusting dungeon. And there was like cockroaches. It was the basement of New York. Like, cockroaches everywhere and shit. And the type of beds they had were like the hurricane emergency beds that you see in Florida, like, or like any type of shelter. It was like those like flat, like one piece of material just covering the whole thing so you won't fall off or some shit like that. And it traumatized me. I was like, what the fuck? Because I didn't, like, my family wasn't like rich, but they weren't poor either. Like, or at least they never really showed it to me. Like, I don't know. It completely changed, like, wow. And that same night, like the next day, like the same day that I left was, I think it was on a Thursday. I had gotten hired on a Wednesday. The Thursday she forced me to leave. And then the Friday, it was my orientation to start Tuesday. And I was like, I have to go. I have to go to the orientation. It's like literally my only way out of here. It's like, I could be homeless in the street, but if I have a job, like, I could make it. And I went, like, they woke us up at 5 a.m. in the morning. I walked. Like, I remember being in like Midtown, like a good 60-something street. And then my orientation was all the way in like 20-something street, like 26th Street or something like that. It was like way down lower Manhattan or something like that. I don't really remember. And I just walked, and it was like, it's 5 in the morning. They kicked me out because they kick everyone out at 5 in the morning. I guess for mass or some shit like that. I don't know. It wasn't like a full-on shelter. It was just like a place where homeless people would go and sleep at night. And I had like a duffel bag with me. I was so embarrassed that I walked into my orientation just with a whole bag full of clothes, like. But I didn't care. I did it, and I left the orientation. They fed us. Like, I ate the food, and I was like, thank God, because I didn't really have money to eat anything. And I was just like, what now? Like, even though I'm hired, like there's still 2 weeks before I even get paid, and I just didn't like where I lived, where I spent the night at, and I was just like, what do I do now? And I just thought, I was like, I have to go to foster care then. That's my only option. Like, I'm 17, I'm still a minor. Like, they had to take me in at least for the last year, you know? And because I had just turned 17. It's not like I was turning 18 like in 2 months or something like that. I just turned 18 at 17. And I went, I tried to speak to somebody. Now, this is the most craziest shit ever. The person, like, when I went to talk to somebody, like, a male black dude, like, sat down with me, and he was just asking me questions, blah, blah, blah. And I was just telling him my life story. And he, at some point in time, he literally told me, don't you think stuff like this is happening to you because of your choice of sexuality? Like, he literally tried to say that because I was gay, all these things were happening to me. And he was trying to get me to go to a church. I was like, what? Like, bro, I didn't go to no fucking church. I went to fucking DCF. I went to Child Protective Services. I didn't go to the fucking Pope and ask for your opinion on what the fuck my life decisions is. I came here because you're supposed to help underage people with whatever it is that they need fucking help with. Either abuse or whatever it is. Anything for a fucking child. Like child protection. But no, he decided that he was gonna do mass with me in that fucking room. And I remember being so fucking pissed. But thankfully, like, I think with somebody else, like, somebody else took over, and then I totally told her, I was like, yo, no, you know your coworker literally just tried to tell me that I'm like, that all this shit is happening to me because I'm gay. So, yeah. And ironically, there was like, oh, we can't take you in because you're 17, and like, I think 16 was the cutoff for like putting people in foster. I don't know what type of excuse they gave me, but they were pretty much telling me that I was too old to go into foster care, and they were like, your next option is to go to a shelter. Like, if you go to a shelter, then they'll probably give you a bed and a room and whatever. I was like, fine, whatever, fuck it. Like, what the fuck am I gonna do? What was my other option? Sent me to this place called Forney Center, which is not that far away. It was like, because the DCF department that I went to was the one on 125 Harlem. And, which is the same area where the shelter's in, the drop-in. And I remember going in, and it was just like, what? Like, I was scared. Like, I don't know, I think they didn't drive me or anything. They just gave me a Metro card, like a 2-way Metro card, and it was like, oh, just, here you go, and here's the address. Just go over there. I was like, fine, whatever. I went, and they did my intake. I was thankful because I was still underage, so I was like priority. I didn't have to really wait for anything, or like, it was a really good time to be homeless because at that age, because like everything was kind of like fast for me. You usually have to wait like a good 5 days at the drop-in, which is like, it's not really like a live-in place. Like, it's like really the center area, and like at night they like move the desks and tables, and then they put like the same beds that were at the church, till like there's space at the actual houses where they house the youth. But this place is like an LGBT only place, shelter. Like, if you're straight, you're not allowed. Like, or if you don't consider yourself an ally, or some shit like that. Like, you have to be LGBT to join this place. And yeah, like, I think it only lasted like 3-4 days, me living in there. Like, they wake you up at 6 a.m. and you have to go out to like 9, and you come back, they serve you breakfast and much good shit. And yeah, I went to my first day of work. I just salad, like, and I lived there, like, while still living in the shelter. Like, I just worked. And I remember just taking a lot of hours and just working a lot to not be in the house, because I don't know, it was a lot of personalities. Like the gay community is very loud, very obnoxious for me. Like I never really liked the whole yes and like all that good shit. It's like, yeah. And then I lived there. Like I lived in the house for a good sort of 6 months, and then they moved me up to like the actual place where you could stay at for at least, because the where they put me at is an emergency shelter. You only can live there to up to 6 months at the time, and during the day it closes. Like you had to get out by a certain time, and then you have to be back by a certain time, because if not, you will lose your bed. Like write-ups would add up, and you will lose your bed. Thankfully, they fixed that. Like they've done a better job, I guess, a better policy. Last time I heard of them, and yeah, I stayed there for a good 2 years, and like the different tiers of housings that they have. I didn't speak to my dad or any type of my family for a very long time. Like I don't think I think it was close to a year before I ever texted anyone. I just did me. Like I never looked back. I just never looked back. I was just like, I'm great. I'm powerful. I have strength. I'm still alive, And I've always had that type of resilience in me to just keep going without even looking back. Like, or unfortunately, even without even processing my emotions, I would just look forward, just fuck everyone, I got me, You can have yourself, but I got me. I always felt like I didn't need absolutely nobody. Not a God, not a religion, not a father, not a mother. Like if a bird can make it after they're no longer a toddler, I can make it after no longer being a toddler. And that was just my motto that I just felt since everything that occurred. And since my mom passed away, I feel like that's when my mom passed away, I feel like that's when I stopped being a bird toddler, and I just felt like I just had to fly away. I can't stay in this religious controlled family and trauma controlled family, and I just knew there was more to me. I was like, if I'm gonna make it to a whole different level of life, to a whole different persona, to elevate my frequency to more that they have elevated their frequency, I know that I needed to do it outside of that house. And I've fallen down. Of course I've fallen down. And over the years, like, we ended up fixing, not fixing, but we ended up just reconciling. Not even reconciling. We ended up just deciding to just let it all go and just like say hello in there whenever it was needed. Because we don't have that type of relationship. For me, it was just like the people that raised me and I'm grateful for, and that I'm always gonna, if I can, I'm gonna be there for them if they need me. And this is me now. I'm learning, I'm still growing, I'm a burning phoenix, and I can say I made it out of homelessness. So yeah. That's my story.